Hello, you guys. Luxira Moon Goddess. And today, for Real Talk Friday, we are going to be discussing your intuition is faster than your anxiety if you just listen. So, that is what we're going to be discussing today, and I'll explain what I mean by this. So, with your intuition, if you choose to listen to your intuition, it is powerful. You have a lot of people don't believe that they don't have intuition, or a lot of times when you don't trust your intuition, it's usually because you have a lot of self-doubt. But if you just listen to your intuition, it is powerful and it is faster than your anxiety. But you have to listen. If you're not used to listening to your intuition, if you're want somebody who's, you're very anxious, you have, a lot of negative thoughts or what have you, of course you're not going to be able to listen to your intuition. It's because you're choosing to listen to your anxiety instead, and you're feeding off of the negativity. You're feeding off of those anxious thoughts. Oh, what if something goes wrong, or I'm scared if I mess up this speech, or I'm worried about, if this date doesn't go well. You have to get into here's the thing about your anxiety. You don't have time to be anxious. You don't have time. Life is too short to live your life in fear. So you have to stop listening to your anxiety. You have to stop accepting your anxious and your nervous thoughts as truth. It's not truth. A lot of the times it's not truth. When you're having a lot of anxious thoughts, and coming from me, I used to be, when I was a lot younger, especially in my teenage years, I was an anxious person. I'm not going to lie. I was an anxious person, especially when it came to like meeting people, social settings, or what have you. A lot of what makes anxiety much more worse is what I call fear feeding. Fear feeding is when you're basically giving into those negative thoughts. You're giving in, you're adding negativity to your anxiety. And it's like when you start fear feeding, you're believing in those negative thoughts. You're giving into the anxiety. And when you're fear feeding, it's like, oh, what if this goes wrong? And what if I don't do well on this? Then I'm not going to get that job. I'm not going to do well in the job interview. Then I won't be able to get a job. Then I'm going to have to look for more jobs. And what if I'm still looking for jobs? For several weeks, several months. That's fear feeding. So that's fear feeding. You have is basically compounding negative thoughts. So with that being said, you don't want to be fear feeding, because fear feeding makes your anxiety much worse. So let's go back to intuition. Your intuition, if you really think about it, is biological, especially as women. We are actually naturally intuitive. We are naturally intuitive. We it's that gut feeling. And a lot of people just say, oh, some people will discredit it as, oh, it's just a coincidence. It's not a real thing. No, trust me, intuition is a real thing. And you, instead of talking to your anxiety, believing in your anxiety and giving into your anxiety, you need to get to a point to where your intuition is your friend. That is the point. That is the point you have to get to. Make your intuition your friend. Your intuition is much faster than your anxiety. If you train yourself to listen to your intuition and you get used to it, your anxiety is going to not be as loud. Over time, your anxiety is not going to be as loud because you choose to listen to your intuition rather than giving into your anxiety. So, with that being said, how do you strengthen your intuition? How do you get used to listening to your intuition? First thing, what are something you should do to strengthen your intuition? First of all, if you are someone who always doubts themselves, you need to figure out how to become confident. Like for example, if you're always like people who are not very decisive, you need to figure out how to become decisive. Make decisions. Don't be afraid to do what it is that you want to do. Don't be afraid to make the decision that you want to go with. Listen to yourself. Listen to your own intuition. Listen to yourself. Stop listening to other people's decisions. Don't let other people make decisions for you. And if you're someone who, because a lot of people like to get other people's suggestions, sometimes it's like you want to get another person's opinion. You have to stop getting into the habit of doing that. Especially, especially if you're older, we're all grown adults. You make the decision, not the other person. The other person doesn't, because here's the thing about letting other people make decisions for you. That other person is not you. They don't know what's truly best for you. So you're sitting and you're letting these other people make decisions for you. You're always going to them for advice. You're always going to them for opinions. How is it that you can build self-doubt and self-confidence in yourself when you're always running to all these other people? It doesn't make any sense. You're not going to believe in yourself because you don't trust yourself. You don't trust yourself to make the decision. That's why you're going to all of these other people rather than trusting yourself. You have to stop doing this. You have to stop doing this because if you keep doing it, you're never going to believe in yourself. You're never going to be confident in yourself. So, stop asking other people for their opinions, their suggestions, all of that. Make the decision yourself. When you get in the habit of making the decision yourself, you're going to become more decisive because you trust yourself. You start trusting your judgment. That is what you need to do. So you're trusting yourself, you're trusting your judgment, and it's like, oh, you know what I did. And when you do make the decision yourself, you're going to realize, oh, you know what, I did this decision, I made this decision, and you know what, it turned out great. I'm glad that I made the decision to do this. That's what you want to happen. You want to be someone, you want to get to a point where you're decisive. Because when you're decisive, when you trust your judgment, that's what's going to strengthen your intuition because you're listening, you're choosing to listen to yourself, to listen to your own intuition. That's what you want to happen. So when you start listening to your intuition is much faster than your anxiety. You have to choose to listen. You have to stop and listen. Now, of course, it's a little bit difficult. When you're anxious, depending on what your anxiety is like, you may have anxious thoughts. You may have racing thoughts. But you have to just stop and listen. When you just stop and listen for a moment, you're going to hear your intuition. You're going to hear your true inner thoughts. And you're going to feel that feeling. Some people call it a gut feeling. Some people feel it in, intuition comes in different ways. You're going to feel it. You're going to just know, oh, I'm hearing this. Or I'm feeling like I need to do this instead. That's your intuition. That is your intuition speaking to you. Listen to your intuition. Your intuition needs to become your best friend. And when you strengthen your intuition, you're going to be able to trust yourself so much more, to have confidence in yourself so much more than when you don't trust your intuition at all. That is the point you want to get to. Stop, I talk about transmutation on this channel. Transmutation. Stop listening to the negative because you're a lot of times your anxiety is usually something negative. It's something negative. You're listening to your anxiety. It's giving you these negative thoughts. It's putting you in a negative perspective. Use transmutation. What do you really need to do to get into a positive emotional state? What do you need to do to transmute your anxiety so that you're no longer listening to it? Listening to your intuition is what's key. Stop listening to your anxiety. Because if you don't, and you keep listening and you keep fear feeding and you keep listening to your anxiety and you keep choosing your anxiety over your intuition, you're never going to be confident as a goddess. you're not going to be a confident person. You're always going to be anxious. You go out, anxiety manifests. People have different types of anxiety in different areas of their life. It can be social anxiety, social settings, talking to people, or fear of something bad's going to happen. It manifests in different ways. Don't keep choosing your intuition don't keep choosing your anxiety over your intuition. Because if you do, it's going to take over your life. It's going to take over your life. You're not going to be able to function. Some people's anxiety is actually so bad that they can't even function properly. You don't want to be one of those people. You don't want to be one of those people. You don't want to become one of those people. And like I said before, when I was younger, I used to have anxiety, particularly in social settings. Stop, don't become one of those people, because if you don't handle it, and I got to a point where, and luckily for me, for the most part, as I got older, I just started to grow out of it. And I think a part of me growing out of being anxious in like social settings and speaking to people was that I just got to a point where I just didn't care anymore. Because it's like I started getting older. It's like I'm too old. I came to an epiphany where it's like I'm too old to worry about what people are going to think of me if I say this or that. It's like I'm too old for this. I just made up in my mind I'm too old for this. I'm too old to be anxious when I'm speaking to people. I'm too old to be anxious about meeting new people. I'm too old to be anxious on job interviews. Too old for it. And I got to a point where I made up in my mind, I don't need to care, because you have to really stop. Like for example, since I'm speaking on this, if you're somebody who's anxious in social settings, you have to stop and think, especially with social media. We have all the social media. We have Instagram, for example. And, there's a lot of people. Honestly, if you really think about it, there's a lot of strange people in this world. And you have all these people who are like really weird, really, really strange. And they are confidently posting themselves, their true thoughts, or posting silly things, weird things, funny things, or what have you, all over social media. It's all over social media. And, if you stop and really think about it, you have to stop and think. If this person can confidently be speaking on something that doesn't even make any sense, or be one of these people who's speaking and they're like super delusional, or they're speaking on something and they're just really just kind of strange, you have to stop and think about it this way. How is it that this person has so much confidence in themselves, and you're probably not even as strange as them? You're probably not a strange person. You're probably not weird. You're probably better than them. And you're sitting walking around, and you're anxious, you're socially anxious, and you don't want to be your true self, or you're afraid to say XYZ, and da 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 da. The thing is, it's not really that. If you really think about it, it's not that serious from the get go. And a lot of times, if you're one of these people that's afraid of being judged by someone, you just don't care. You shouldn't care about what their opinion of this person, because this person could be judging you, but if at the end of the day, and I've had these instances, they're probably not better than you. If you really think, they're probably walking around super delusional, either uglier than you. They're not all that. They're probably not even succeeding in their career, or whatever it is. Whatever it is, they're not better than you. Be confident in yourself. Be confident in yourself. You don't have time to be anxious. How can you be anxious? How can you be afraid of being judged when you have, especially in this day and age, we have all these people, all this technology, all the social media. People are posting different things, food, what restaurants, their body, people, and I'm not against overweight people or anything like that, but it's just all these people are able to be themselves. You should be able to be yourself as well. So trust your intuition. Trust yourself. Get to a point of listening to your intuition. And when you start, because a lot of times I've had several instances because I had to learn to listen to my intuition. There were times where I would listen to what other people say. I would listen to their decision, or I would listen to their suggestion. those times where I listened and I chose to go with their decision over mine, I would regret it. And it happens so many times. It's like, stop, you make the decision yourself. When I would and then when I got to a point where I started trusting my intuition and I started becoming more decisive, even if I made a decision where I made a mistake or something like that, I wouldn't be, when I would listen to other people, I would be angry, I would be resentful, I would be upset. When I listened to myself and it turned out to be a mistake, I didn't even see it like that. It's like, oh, it's just a learning lesson, it's just a mistake, and I just have to learn from this instance. I wouldn't be regretful. I wouldn't see it as a regret to choose to listen to my intuition. So, get to a point where you're trusting your intuition over your anxiety. Stop letting your anxiety ruin your life. Stop letting your anxiety take over your life. Listen to your intuition. Make it a habit. Make it a habit, become decisive, and you're going to be more confident within yourself because you're starting to trust your own judgment. So, that is all I have for this Real Talk Friday, and I will check you guys later in another one. Bye-bye.